You slept for 8 hours last night. So why do you feel like you've been running for your life since the moment you opened your eyes? You woke up this morning already tired. Not from anything. Just tired the way you're always tired. The underneath kind. The kind that was there before the day started, and will be there after it ends, and has been there for so long, you don't remember what the mornings felt like before it arrived. Maybe it was always there. You think maybe it was always there. The day will be fine. You'll handle everything. You'll seem okay because you are okay, mostly, on top. But underneath you'll carry it the way you always carry it. The way you've carried it through every good thing that happened to you, and every hard thing, and every ordinary Tuesday that didn't ask anything of you at all. It doesn't care what kind of day it is, it's just there. And the thing is, you've tried to locate it. You've gone looking for the source, the reason, the specific thing that if you could just resolve it, address it, understand it clearly enough, the underneath tiredness would finally lift. But there's never one thing. Or there is one thing, and you handle it, and then there's another thing, and you handle that. And you look up, and the tiredness is still there, unchanged, like it wasn't related to the things at all, because it isn't. The things are just what it attaches to, what it uses to justify its own presence. Give it a deadline, and it becomes dread about the deadline. Take away the deadline, and it finds something else before the day is over. It doesn't need a reason. It predates the reasons. Then and somewhere in the gap between the reasons you can name and the tiredness that remains after you've resolved them, that's where the actual thing lives. The thing this is really about. The thing that has been running so long and so quietly that you stopped experiencing it as something happening to you and started experiencing it as just the texture of being alive. It isn't. And the distance between what you think this is and what it actually is, that's the whole thing. Here is what it actually is. At some point, earlier than you'd think, possibly earlier than you can remember, your mind made a decision, not a conscious one, not something you chose. More like a conclusion reached quietly in the background after enough data had come in. The conclusion was this: the world is the kind of place where you have to keep watching. That not because anything catastrophic happened necessarily. Sometimes something did, but sometimes it was smaller than that. A home where the emotional temperature changed without warning, and you learned to read the room before you walked into it. A period where how you performed determined how you were treated, and you learned to perform before you were asked. A stretch of ordinary time where enough small things went wrong when you weren't paying attention that the mind drew its own lesson. Watch. Stay ready. Don't let things catch you off guard. And then the mind did what minds do. It practiced. Every time the watching helped. Every time you predicted something, prepared for something, avoided something by staying ahead of it. The mind noted that down. Filed it. Reinforced the behavior that produced the relief. The watching worked. So the watching continued, and continued, and continued, until you couldn't remember deciding to watch at all, until it wasn't a decision anymore, until it was just the ground, the baseline, the thing underneath everything that you built the whole life on top of. You didn't develop anxiety. You developed a system, and the system did exactly what it was designed to do. The part that nobody tells you, the part that changes something when you finally hear it, is what the system was actually protecting. Not you from the world. You from surprise. There's a difference. The world is too large to protect against. But surprise. The specific feeling of being caught unprepared, of having something arrive that you didn't see coming, of standing in a moment without having already rehearsed it. That felt survivable. That felt like something a system could address. So the system addressed it. It started scanning earlier, preparing longer, taking ordinary silences and ordinary uncertainties and ordinary moments where nothing was required, and treating them all as information to be processed, variables to be assessed, gaps in the preparation to be filled. And the deeper this went, the more thorough it became, the more the system started doing something that nobody warned you about. It started generating its own material. You'd handle the thing you were worried about, and instead of resting, the system would find the next thing. And when there wasn't a next thing, it would construct one. A hypothetical, a possibility, a version of next week where something went wrong that you hadn't prepared for. Not because you're a pessimist, not because your life is difficult, because the system had been running so long, it didn't know how to not run. The alarm had been on for so long, it forgot it was an alarm. And then something happened that made it invisible. You got good at it. The scanning became fast. The preparation became automatic. The monitoring became so efficient and so seamless that from the inside, it stopped feeling like a system doing something and started feeling like a mind simply working the way minds work. You called it being responsible. You called it being thorough. On the good days, you called it why you're good at what you do. And none of those things are wrong, exactly. The system did make you responsible. It did make you thorough. It did produce real results in the real world, and people around you noticed and respected the outputs, even if they couldn't see the machinery behind them. But here is what the efficiency cost you. You stopped being able to tell the difference between a moment that required your attention and a moment that didn't. They all started to feel the same. The conversation you need to prepare for, and the conversation you don't. The risk worth thinking through and the risk that will never materialize. The silence that means something, and the silence that is just silence. The system treats them identically. Maximum vigilance all the time, regardless of whether the moment calls for it. And a mind running at maximum vigilance all the time. A mind that cannot register ordinary moments as safe, that cannot allow silence to just be silence, that cannot complete a day and put it down and rest. That mind is exhausted in a way that sleep doesn't reach. Because the exhaustion isn't from the day, it's from the system running through the day, non-stop, since before you can remember. Here is the part that tends to land differently than everything else. You are not experiencing the present. You are experiencing a position that was formed in the past and has been carried, unchanged, into every moment since. Right now, not theoretically, actually, right now. The thing sitting underneath everything is not responding to your life as it currently is. It's responding to a conclusion reached a long time ago about what kind of place the world is and what level of watching that kind of place requires. That conclusion made complete sense when it was formed. The environment that produced it was real. The data that led to it was real. The protection it offered was real. But the conclusion was formed by a version of you that was younger and had fewer resources and was working with the information available at the time. And it has never been updated, not because you failed to update it, because that's not how protective systems work. They don't dissolve when the threat passes. They don't receive the information that the original conditions have changed. They stay on, watching, waiting for the threat to return, interpreting the absence of threat, not as safety, but as a temporary gap in the data. The system isn't broken. The system is doing exactly what it learned to do, in a life that no longer needs it done. This is where most people stop. They get the understanding, and they recognize the pattern. They have the moment of clarity where it all makes sense. where the exhaustion and the scanning and the underneath tiredness finally have a shape, a name, a history. And then the next morning they wake up, and the system is still running, because insight doesn't turn off the alarm. Knowing why your smoke detector goes off constantly doesn't stop it going off. What changes things isn't understanding the system. It's the first time you catch the system mid-run and realize, in the body, not just in the mind, that it activated on its own, that nothing in the actual present moment required it, that the vigilance arrived before any threat did, the way it always arrives, the way it has always arrived, scanning for something to justify the level of readiness it was already at. That moment of catching it, not analyzing it, not judging it, not trying to stop it, just seeing it clearly for what it is, that's where something shifts. Not dramatically, not immediately, but something shifts, because the system has never been seen before, not really. It survived by being invisible, by disguising itself as thinking, as responsibility, as just how your mind works. The moment you see it as a system, as something separate from you, something that learned to run, something that is running right now in the background of this moment, whether or not this moment needs it, it loses something it cannot get back. It loses the invisibility. And a system you can see is a system you can, slowly, begin to have a different relationship with. You won't wake up tomorrow and not have it. Fear that's not how this works, and anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something. But you might wake up tomorrow and catch it earlier. Notice it before you've already been inside it for an hour. Feel it activate in a moment that doesn't require it, and for just a second. Just 1 second. See it for what it is. A system, running, because it learned to, because it was useful once, because nobody ever told it the situation had changed. The tiredness you wake up with every morning isn't a flaw in you. It's the cost of a protection that never got the signal it was safe to stop. That's not failure. That's just what a system does when it's never been seen clearly enough to rest. You're seeing it now. That's where it starts.